we have seen how we could interact with the Firebase NoSQL database through Python, through the Python command line, how we can insert, update or delete the data which is there in the NoSQL database. But we need to see how we could use a web application, because that is important. We will have an application, and these days applications has to be on the kind of a web-based application. Web-based meaning it should be through the URL. So naturally, through an URL-based application called a web-based application, we need to see how we can interact with the Firebase NoSQL database. So the approach towards the web-based application development is that we'll be using Python Flask to invoke and process the web page. So we'll be briefly looking at what is a Flask, and just it is just an overview about the Flask and the functionality used here. And then we'll design a very simple web page, and so that it can capture the details through that web page, and then it will interact with the Flask application, and Flask application in turn will interact with the NoSQL database to have the data captured in the database. And yeah, towards designing the web page, we'll be using HTML.html file, which can be called by the Flask program through a function called page render we got to use, so that in that case it will render it will call the HTML file, and the HTML file will open up in the browser, and then the data will be fetched and posted into the NoSQL database. For this to happen, you need to have Flask already installed. If you had installed through the Anaconda and the Jupyter Notebook, generally it is already installed, or else you need to install Flask through the pip install Flask. So that needs to be done successfully before you can use this functionality. So Flask is a web application framework written in Python. These days, due to use of NoSQL for all the web applications, Flask has become much more, it is receiving much more traction compared to the earlier time. So it is much simpler, because Python is something like you have codes in it, but when it comes to a web development, Python, there are challenges. So naturally one needs to look at something like Django or Flask, which is a web application framework. So again, if you look at it, this is a simple Flask program. The first one is we are calling the class from Flask import, or import Flask initially when we want to import something, a library, we used to do that. So that is the first command, and then we initialize Flask, and then this root function. We'll briefly look at the significance of the parameters inside the root function, that is slash methods. You'll see that, and then this is a kind of a binding when you call the app root. So it binds with the basic function and returns hello world. And finally, this one is to run or call the Flask function, that is the app root. So reading the code, the app root, that is whatever is presented here over here, the app root. So app root, that is, or it is generally called root rules options. The rules parameter represent the URL binding, and the options are the list of the parameters to be forwarded in the underlying rules object. So in this example, we'll be using slash, just a slash. We will not be providing a separate URL, because we'll be using the local machine. So because of that, we'll be using the slash, and hence, and again, as I said, it is bound by the basic function, which is provided here, the basic function. And then hence, when home page of the web server is opened in the browser, the output of the function will be rendered. In that case, it is just the hello world. Then we also had get and post as a parameter. So the get is something like the browser tells the server to just get the information stored on the page and send it. Most commonly used method. And this is the post is something like when you want to post information to the URL, the server, so that the data is stored. So we'll be using the post. So what we will see is we will run this program. I have already created this program. We'll run this program and see what happens. First of all, how to run this program, and then we'll open up the browser and we'll see what happens in the browser. So if you want to know more about the Flask, you can refer to this website. It provides you with all the details how to use the Flask. It's all there in flask.poku.org. So you can probably visit this site. And what I have is I have created this program, whatever I showed in the PowerPoint. Very simple program. This will be using it, and what I have done is I have stored locally in my machine in E drive and a JSON. I have stored it as test. So what I am going to do is I'll be calling this program. I'll be calling this program, that is Flask import, and then we'll see what happens in the browser. So Python there in my E drive. So JSON test.py is the program. So let me execute this. So yeah, this is it's running at my local machine, HTTP 127.0.0.1.5000. So we'll see, once we open up, you will see that it prints out the hello world. 127, and if you see here, once I say 127, you have it's already initiated the get one. So it says hello world. So and again, let me minimize this and take it over here. Once I click on this, in the Anaconda prompt, you have the get function. It invokes the get function. So my local machine is kind of the development server. So it's a kind of a development server. It is warning, do not use the development server in production environment. That's fine. So the point here I'm trying to convey is whenever you type 127.0.1. it shows that get HTTP 1.1 200 is the handshake has properly happened. It is able to display the page correctly. That is the kind of a handshake signal when we use the HTTP protocol. So now I hope you understand the basic functionality of using the Flask. So in the next presentation, we'll see how to use Flask. First is we need to kind of have a HTML page. So that HTML page needs to be displayed, and instead of just this hello world, we need to design a HTML page, and then in the HTML page we need to get some data, get an input of that data, and then it will return that value into the Python program, and then through using the Python Flask commands and the other commands related to Firebase, that is, you also remember that we use Firebase. So using that, we need to post into the NoSQL database. So let us now look at how to use Flask and communicate with the NoSQL database. So we have seen how to use Flask and use that in a HTML to display an output in the URL. Now we'll see how to communicate with the NoSQL DB with the Flask. So this is the kind of a flow we'll have. We need to initialize the Firebase, that is that import program we have seen earlier, that is import of Firebase, and then followed by the configuration parameters which is related to the NoSQL database. So that needs to be there. And then we need to initialize the Flask also, that is that Flask class wherein we'll be importing the Flask into the program. And this is one more step. We have to create an HTML page to render it. From a coding perspective of the Flask, this is how it is going to look like. This is the method. This is where, because we'll be using not only get is something like whatever is there in the HTML page that will get displayed. We'll be using also the post functionality. Post is something you'll see here. We are going to post it into the SQL DB. That is where we are telling Flask we are going to use post also apart from the get. So if you look at it in the program, once you call the root, we are binding it to the basic. So if it is not post, then that is as long as till the time the submit is button is in the web page, you will see till the time the submit is done, it will keep displaying the web page. So if it is not post, it will render the template index.html, which is the name of the HTML file. So if it is post, then this will get into the if condition, and then if it is add, then that means, if you remember it, we are posting it or pushing the details into the HTML DB under the child to do, and again we are also displaying whatever value is there, we are displaying it into the page. That is what it does over here. If you look at it, and then if you want to delete it, you can remove using the delete function, and then we'll be keeping to render, return or render the template, so that till the time you exit out of the program, this will keep on, this program will be running continuously. So considering the time constraints, I have already created the program as indicated over here, which is initialize the Firebase with the config details, and then I have imported the Flask class and then initiated the class, and whatever the program, I have it over here, and then I am doing an app run with the debug on. So that's about the Python program, and then quickly show you about the HTML program as well. So HTML program, focus on this one. If you look at it, we have a submit button. It has a value of add and delete, two buttons we have created, and we have a text also to capture the details into it, and then this is passed on to the Python program, which will in turn interact with the NoSQL database. So all this, I have it over here on the JSON file. A point to note here is, this is a appy is that name of the program, and the template I have kept it over here, that is that index.html I have kept it over here, and yeah, the point here is, when you run the program, that is we are going to run the program appy.py, when you execute in the Python, and during the rendering of the HTML, it will look for the file, look for the folder template, and under the template it will look for the corresponding HTML file. So HTML file. So ensure that you have a template folder, and under the template folder you keep the corresponding HTML file. That is important. Without that, the program will error out. So you have that inside the template folder. So now we'll execute the program and see what happens. So I have opened my Firebase console of the database, and just remember both the files, that is the Python file appy.py and the index files, are available in the resources section, so you can download and just check it and use them during your programs. So now let us run this program and see what happens. This is we have to, so I'll run the program. That is Python, it's under colon, I think it is appy okay, that it is under the folder JSON, and under JSON appy SQL, right? appy, yeah, appy SQL.py is the program. Let's run it. Getting executed. So the program has started. So it is under the URL, I mean HTTP 127.0.0.1. So let's get into 127 and then click on that. So you have the page displayed, and that is where you got the get function also. So project task, enter all the tasks to be performed. So just like any software program, we'll say initially design, development and testing. And the point to note here is whenever we submit it, and see what happens in the Firebase database. So we should minimize this. Okay. Best thing is I'll open up another so that it is easier to refer. Another browser. I will close this one. So what we'll do is, let me see, I'll say initially as design, just like any other project, it starts with design. And once I say submit, you'll see an entry in the NoSQL database. That is what needs to happen. So I'll say design and enter and submit it. And you will see here an entry has been made. So under to do, you have design, and then the next task, project task in any software project could be development. So if I press on development and if I enter development and submit, you have one more, and you have, because we had in the Python program, we were actually getting that value, whatever is being posted, and the get was related to the Firebase get. So don't confuse, there's a get of which is related to the HTML protocol, and this get, there is also a get in the Firebase as well. And again, after development, let me say it is testing. Once you submit, you have an entry as testing, and you have testing over here, which is submitted also under the child to do. So there is also a delete functionality. We have incorporated in the code a delete functionality also. If you look at the code, in case if you delete it, what needs to happen is it should get all the to do project tasks needs to get deleted. So I am going to press delete. So all this will go off. So the delete has, it has got deleted, or basically it will be a remove function as far as the Firebase is concerned, which deletes all the data fields corresponding to that document. So by this, I hope you understood how to use them in the web page, and then interacted, do interactions with the NoSQL database. So thank you. Stay